Good evening. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Ishan Russell. Tonight our focus is on neighbouring Myanmar because history is being scripted over there. The country is slowly witnessing a transition from a military junta rule to a democracy. The general election results in the country show Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy looking all set to sweep the polls. But does this election mean democracy is here to stay in Myanmar? And how does the country move forward from here? And also, what about the neighborhood? India has been keeping a close eye on the elections there because Myanmar figures prominently in India's Act East policy, and we also share a border with the country. So tonight we examine the elections in Myanmar and what it means for the country itself as well as the neighborhood. To help us examine these questions, I am joined by Raghubansh, Sinha, Deputy News Editor at the Hindustan Times. Former diplomat Ashok Sajjanhar is with us in the studio. So is Sanjay Kapoor, editor of Hardnews, and Lieutenant General Utpal Bhattacharya is also with us in the studio as a defense expert. I'll break up this discussion into two parts. First, we'll focus on Myanmar, and then we'll focus on the larger issues of neighborhood and ties with India and how this impacts our foreign policy. But first, talking about Myanmar, Sanjay, we had a chat about this yesterday as well, and this is indeed a historic moment for Myanmar. It's moving forward after a long time. As far as these elections are concerned, how critical do you think they are as far as the neighborhood is also concerned?
So before we embark on neighborhood, as you started off, that you would probably take it on the second part, I think in itself, Myanmar, these elections are very important. This is probably the freest and the fairest and election that has been conducted. Got certificates from the ASEAN observers, from other international bodies, monitors who are watching it. And there's been a fantastic turnout, almost 80%. So people have stepped out because they think that the elections that are taking place, the democracy that they're experiencing, can bring about a change in their lives. Okay. It's a miserably poor country. It has gone through all kinds of tragedies. You had a military rule which was very oppressive. They did great harm to the lives of people. You had a stifled media. You didn't know what was really happening. You had to go to Myanmar to experience what it really means when clock stands still, when nothing much is happening. You almost felt that the country hadn't moved. But things started moving faster after you had the elections last time. When USDP won and you had the Thein San who took over. He's actually he's backed by the army or Tatmadaw as it is called, is what probably governs the entire country. So once you had Thein San coming in, a great amount of, you can say, openness started happening in that country. But a lot to be done because still the old structures are intact. The army controls the parliament, army controls every part of, you can say, Burmese life. And there you had Aung San Suu Kyi who suffered long periods of confinement. Right. And now she's come in to lead the NLD, but she's not allowed to become the president.
All right, but I would just want to understand also why are these elections necessary? Because the military junta was in control, Ashok Sajjanhar, and what prompted such a move in terms of moving forward towards a democracy? Is this international pressure or is it something else?
I think the country really did start moving forward and changing from 2010 onwards, when Aung San Suu Kyi was released, and 2011 when Thein Sein came to be the president. In 2010 USDP and that government was formed, and then slowly and gradually he's been opening up. And in that sense, I think the dependence upon China before that was so dominant, and Thein Sein wanted to change that because he wanted to get other actors and other players in. And they had started coming in slowly and gradually. Right. And in that context, it was found necessary to have this election. Now, while agreeing with much of what Sanjay has said, I would like to characterize these elections as a step in the right direction, but a tentative step and a hesitant step. Okay. Because I would like to say that even after the elections, two things I would like to bring to your attention. Number one, again, as you referred, Aung San Suu Kyi, according to the Constitution of 2008, yes, under which the elections are being held, she will not be allowed to be the president, number one. Number two, for any change in the Constitution, you need 75% majority. Okay. And in any case, 25% majority of the lower house and the 25% of parliament members in lower house and upper house are already reserved and designated for the army. Okay. So in any case, the army will not allow this. If you look at the other aspects, irrespective of which government comes, it is the military which appoints the Home Minister.
Right.
It is the military which
they have the defense, they have the critical services they have. I want to get in Lieutenant General Bhattacharya also in this, because as far as the military junta is concerned, we might call it the biggest election in Myanmar's history and move towards democracy. But is it really that? Is the military junta really letting go of that power? As Mr. Sajjanhar was pointing out, that 25% of the parliament is reserved for the military itself.
Frankly speaking, one has to be a little cautiously optimistic. Right, they are going for elections. They had elections. USDP was what? Initially, it was military which was ruling the country. Then military appointed USDP to run the country as per their wish. It is not only 25%. It is not only your Home Minister, Defence Minister and the Border Security Minister. It is, they have also got the power that for the country's benefit, for the national benefit, they can overturn that also.
Okay.
And they can come. Like, very often we say that India has got an army and Pakistan army has got a country to look after.
Right.
So here the situation is not very much different. Now there is a problem. The problem is they are having little problem from the Bangladesh side. They are having these problems of these Rohingya Muslims and all these things. And now that's why the Buddhist fundamentalist group is coming up.
Right.
And they are fighting amongst themselves. So that border, which is a tri-junction between India, Burma, or the Myanmar, and Bangladesh, is becoming a very hotbed of all these things. And what all we are talking about, little bit of going forward, little bit of, though they are not the communist countries, little bit of perestroika and glasnost and all, they are being affected because of that particular thing. So they were isolated, and that's why they had to look only towards China. Now, of course, if this happens, and as you mentioned in your opening remark, that probably there's a pressure from USA, pressure from other European countries. Now I understand pressure from the erstwhile East European countries also. That's why they are going for a little free and fair election, as the speakers have already brought out, that the observers from all over have come. The Belgian observers, that international observers, they're also...
it's international pressure prompting Myanmar to take action, but Raghubansh, as far as Myanmar is concerned, they had, 2011 was of course an election, but in 1990, Aung San Suu Kyi had swept the elections and come to power, and then the military junta had come in and said, no, this is not going to happen like this, and they'd taken over, and for over 20 years, nothing really happened as far as democracy is concerned. Do you think that kind of situation could emerge, given the kind of results that we are seeing Aung San Suu Kyi's NLD sweeping the elections?
Well, I don't think so. That is a possibility. And the most important of all is, you see, the maturity of Aung San Suu Kyi herself. Today, 25 years later, it's a different kind of Aung San Suu Kyi that we are seeing. She has moderated. She understands that it's a gradual process of bringing democracy to Myanmar. You see, the situation that was created in 1990 is very different from today. It was literally the people had gone to the streets, and decades of military rule was under threat, and suddenly all the generals felt as if they are going to lose all powers.
Okay.
And so it was a kind of sudden response from the military, and they cut down on them. So today, even the National League for Democracy, they have been very, very moderate in their demand. They are ready to wait.
Right.
And I don't think so that they are expecting that they will get power, everything in one go. They are ready to wait. So it's a different kind of leadership today.
The situation might be different, Sanjay, but what Raghubansh is pointing to is a very interesting point about Aung San Suu Kyi herself. She might not be president, and she's saying that it doesn't matter. Rose by any other name will still be a rose. That's her quote as far as the presidency is concerned. So she's saying she'll run the country, but will she, and are she and the military junta, have they settled their differences? Is it a change, Aung San Suu Kyi, from the figure that we in India also have about somebody who'd been campaigning for democracy, who'd been campaigning for peace, who was sort of a rebel? Now has she become a conformist?
No, she's actually part of the establishment. Her father was, a leader. He was a general in the army. He was the president of the country. And whatever has happened subsequently is not something that she doesn't identify with. she departed and she wanted more democracy. That's all right. But I think at some stage, moderation has sunk in. I mean, you look at how she conducts herself. There is a certain kind of, you can say, a bracket, or you can say bread lines that she has drawn for herself. She is practicing the same kind of politics USDP is doing. There is a criticism that she's her politics become communal. She's not criticizing the genocide that has been that has taken place against the Rohingyas. There is so much of more criticism that is coming her way that she may talk about pluralism, but she's not actually detailing how it is going to look like, because most of the time Burma has been most uncomfortable being plural. There are 65% who are Burmans, rest of them are minorities. Minorities per se haven't really been, you can say, absorbed, or they're
not even part of the electoral process.
800,000, you can say Rohingyas are not even electoral list. There's not a single Muslim candidate for USDP,
and it wasn't allowed. So as far as Myanmar moving forward, Ashok Sajjanhar, isn't this a worry that all the international observers, and not much seems to be said on this front. The world seems to be celebrating the return of democracy to Myanmar, but that democracy is coming at a cost. There are, as Sanjay was pointing out, there's a genocide almost situation that's taken place, and there are people who've not been part of this process and who are absolutely huge in number, 800,000 as he was pointing out.
No, there are huge problems. I think it will be a very big mistake to think that everything is fine and everything is rosy as far as these elections are concerned. Not at all. I think about 20% of the electorate has been disenfranchised. And as you said yourself, not a single Muslim candidate, whether in the NLD or in the USDP, both the major parties, because what has also happened is that just once the elections were announced, and particularly in the first months of this year, the army has also launched its bag of dirty tricks. There have been so many new rules and regulations that have been put in position. And even Aung San Suu Kyi has also spoken about irregularities. She's spoken about people who are missing from the voters list. She has spoken about violence. She's spoken about dead people whose names are on the voters list, and people who are real voters. So there are big problems as far as this is concerned. So I don't think one should be deluding ourselves saying that everything is okay. But I think what people are looking at, and what the general sense that is coming out here also is that it is a step in the right direction, and we need to encourage it and we need to support it, and we need to, so to say, hasten slowly. You don't ask for everything right at the first thing. And I think Aung San Suu Kyi has also been playing her cards extremely deftly and extremely well, notwithstanding the fact that the army put up this extremist rightist Buddhist party, because in a country with 90% Buddhists, and they were also portraying Aung San Suu Kyi and NLD as somehow being sympathetic to the Muslims, and in that context, trying to wean away votes from NLD, that obviously has not worked. But all these things were tried out by the army, by USDP, etc., to reduce the support of the people for Aung San Suu Kyi. That doesn't seem to have worked. So I think we need to, and as we were talking earlier, even as far as the president is concerned, it's going to take a long time. Once the president is elected by the parliament, the president does not need to be dependent upon the support of the parliament. He or she can be completely independent, and his policies, he doesn't need to really bother about
I think this is a situation that, irrespective of the outcome of the results, and the results outcome is, the election results are here, and Aung San Suu Kyi, her party is clearly headed for a win. But interesting point you made over there about the president and his powers. Raghubansh, what the panelists have been talking about, Lieutenant General Bhattacharya also pointed out, about the ethnic groups, about the clashes between the minorities and the major groups like the Buddhist nationalists over there. In that sense, how difficult a country would Myanmar be to control through a central government, and would the NLD be able to do that, and would the military junta be supporting in that?
I think it will be, in a democratic Myanmar, a very, very difficult process, because Myanmar is home to over 100 different kinds of ethnic groups, and whatever ethnic control that we are seeing now at the moment is mainly in a non-democratic environment where the military has clamped down on most of these ethnic groups. In a more democratic setup, I think it will be very difficult to deny them their rights, as the panelists have pointed out, basic rights, such as, they are not on the electoral voting list, they don't have any identity, whether they belong to Myanmar or they don't belong to Myanmar, and these are, millions of people. So I think it will be very difficult. That's number one. Number two is the kind of policy that the leadership, whether it is the military or even the National League for Democracy leader Aung San Suu Kyi, she has been target of attack, mainly because she has ignored the interest of these minorities, and she has not behaved the way people were expecting, that she will carry the whole country all along. Well, one can understand that in a democratic process where you want to win the vote, you will cut corners, but in a more democratic society, I think Myanmar will have to really evolve to take the rights and their obligations regarding the ethnic community more seriously.
All right, Lieutenant Bhattacharya, now shifting focus to India and how this impacts our foreign policy. How critical is Myanmar? Just for a viewer's understanding, how critical is Myanmar for India's Act East policy? Where does Myanmar figure in our foreign policy?
Very, very important, because you see, not only we have got a border with them, that's not the main thing. Our northeastern state, those 7 sisters, they have got borders with, in addition to China and of course Bhutan is no problem. This Myanmar, we have got a long border. And if you really think about how these interstate borders of ours was done, James Ford report or so, it was done, as they say, with the help of a scale. Lot of inter-ethnic people are staying on the other countries, like Manipuris in the Lushai areas and Lushai in this, along with them. So they don't consider that as a different country also. They, as for the ethnicity is concerned, it's a very volatile situation. There, like this Dogra regiment had a tremendous casualty. 19 of them died. After that, of course, there was a counter-strike, and it was inside their territory, and the Myanmar government cooperated with that. In fact, the local commanders of the Myanmar army, they also cooperated with that. So the main point which I am trying to bring out is, we have to have the stable boundary with them. We have to have, so that, because these Rangamatis, those Muslims, those are Chittagong hill tracts and all, who are settled down like our tea planters in Sri Lanka for more than 100 years, they should not be forming another group, and any fundamentalist group is bad. Any ethnic group or any religion. Bama Tha, which the previous speakers had very nicely brought out, that they are the fundamentalist group of this time. They are being initiated by the Myanmar army to strike against them. And they voted, some of them, all those who did not vote, this time, they were in the voting list till about 1991, 1992. That is one of the major clips. So they also was looking for the Shoshi side that probably will get a justice. So the point is, it is very volatile. That is one. And secondly, that particular area of Indian Ocean is very, very rich in gas and oil. Where if we let it go, or if that influence is controlled totally by China, then we are not going to get our pie.
And that is one comparison that constantly comes up. Any conversation that we have, India versus China, whether we're talking about economy or foreign policy. But this is, Myanmar is a very interesting example of where China had a very strong role to play over there, but that has slowly diminished, and the Americans are moving in over there. India had two prime ministers going there last year. So, Ashok, Sajjanhar, what do you think the India strategy towards Myanmar will be, and how is Myanmar viewed, how Myanmar views India?
The importance, of course, it cannot be overemphasized. And I would like to say that the last 4 years, since Thein Sein became the president, I think the last 4 years have been the golden period as far as India-Myanmar relations are concerned. We, of course, could have done much more. And because, when China was moving out after 2011, when that major Mitsom Dam project was suspended by Thein Sein when he came, for a variety of reasons, and I'll not go into that. So after that, we could have done much more, but for a variety of reasons, I think they're very, very important. Whether it is in terms of the energy security, as was been mentioned by the general, that we have investments by a large number of our companies in the oil and gas sector. As far as connectivity is concerned, we have this Kaladan multimodal transport network system from Kolkata to Sitwe to Mizoram. There is that connectivity. Hopefully by 2016 that will be. For the success of our Act East policy, for the security of our states in Northeast, that has also been brought out just now, but also in addition to security, for the economic prosperity and viability of the northeastern states, Myanmar is extremely crucial for us, because through Myanmar we'll be able to connect with Southeast Asia, and they will become, since our connectivity of Northeast with mainland India is such a problem.
And Myanmar could prove to be a very critical factor in that. Sanjay, coming to you, politics is also often about personalities. Aung San Suu Kyi is somebody that India is quite familiar with. I mean, she studied in Delhi in the Lady Shri Ram College. So in that sense, politics is also about personality. And she had that meeting with Prime Minister Modi. How do you see that relationship being developed? Because she said that Xi Jinping was very affable, but Prime Minister Modi has the weight of expectations of 1.25 billion people.
I mean, Aung San Suu Kyi knows India rather well, as we discussed earlier. She's studied here. She knows how the Indian mind and Indian system works. And Myanmar is a neighbor. And long before 1962, you had the entire Indian bureaucracy actually parked in Burma and running Burma. So it was only anti-India agitation that took place that drove the entire bureaucracy and the entire, you can say, the spine of the of Burma per se that came back to India. So it's a country that we know very well. The Burmese also show a great amount of admiration for what India is, although they have misgivings about the so-called hegemonic interests that we might be having. But Burma is a country where both China and India meet, and there the conflict has always been there for natural resources. It is very, very strong in oil and gas, timber, and there are a number of other minerals which are very important available there. India's Lucas policy will not get a meaning till the time that major jigsaw puzzle piece is put in place. So surely Aung San Suu Kyi is coming as somebody ahead of or above the president, and who has already met Prime Minister Modi, would I think make some kind of important beginning to new beginning to the relationship. And it's all about chemistry. I think she found Prime Minister Modi restrained, quiet, and she understood it as because he has to carry the burden of 1.25 billion people's aspiration or an expectation, so that is why he was quiet. But I'm sure it is early days, and if she comes to power and she starts making a move, India would not be held back, and I'm sure we're not going to make the mistakes that we made with Nepal.
All right.
One point I would like to...
These are final words. Very quickly, we've run out of time.
Indira Gujral, during a short span as a Prime Minister, on his Look East policy, a very detailed blueprint was made, not only for the Myanmar, other northeastern countries, and a little bit towards the Tibet, China, all. In the Myanmar, because we were posted in the eastern sector that time, a lot of these things which we are thinking today was made, but it went to the bit of a cold storage as...
so the elections probably have heated up, and it's out of
after 10-15 years, now again it is evolving out. It's very, very important. It's strategically important. It's located in such a manner so that we can get a lot out of that.
All right, Raghubansh, a final word from you. As far as these elections are concerned, I mean, I'm sure they're a step in the right direction moving forward from here, but a lot to keep a keen watch on as far as Myanmar is concerned. So your closing comments.
Yeah, before I give my closing comment, just small comment on the Indian foreign policy. Throughout the 1990s, India was, being criticized for being in touch with the military regime. Actually, that is the policy which has proved to be the correct policy, and which the entire international community is following today. And it has resulted in some amount of opening up only when the international community got in touch with the military dictatorship. Actually, what had happened was, even Aung San Suu Kyi, she was very unhappy with India's foreign policy during most of the 1990s. But here, while we have a lot to do, lot to catch up in Indo-Myanmar relationship, but in the long run, India proved that we did have the right kind of approach to Myanmar, that is engagement will, open up things. And the final comment as far as this, I think while it is a historic moment, I think we need to be very, very cautious.
Okay.
Because the military seems to be in no mood to give up power, but they still want to keep some amount of leverage on the next government.
All right, Sanjay, a final word to you as far as the people-to-people contact are concerned, because I have ancestors who used to live in Myanmar. So in that sense, countries used to be pretty integrated, but the people-to-people contact has somewhat really lessened in that sense. Do you see that changing? Is that a way that India could really change its engagement with Myanmar?
I think if there is, there is normalization taking place every day with more tourists going to Myanmar and rediscovering the beauty of Myanmar. You've got this wonderful place called Bagan, Mandalay, which has so much of India there. Every lane has an imprint of India. All those things can really change, and once you have the business also picking up and the Burmese realizing that the investment could come from India because of geographical, logistical advantage, there is so much to look forward to once relations normalize, get better, and the Americans also lift all the sanctions, and you have more, there is a criticism that is always there that too many cronies making money out of the army and the Tatmadaw. So once they loosen up and you have, normal businesses taking place, I think there will be more opportunities, and people-to-people contact will also grow quite fast.
All right, Ashok, Sajjanhar, closing comments.
Yeah, I think there's great possibility, great opportunity, and whether it is Indian culture, it is Indian films, yoga, etc. When Prime Minister Modi went there in November last year for the East Asia Summit, you'd recall he had addressed the Indian diaspora as he does in most of the other countries, and there was a resounding resonance amongst those people. So I think people-to-people contact has great possibilities there. We need to be there, and one comment about what was mentioned, that Prime Minister Modi was a little restrained, but I think he has shown his mettle in terms of summit diplomacy wherever he has gone, and I think all the world leaders, he's really been able to establish a very close rapport with all of them. And of course, as far as India is concerned, we always deal with the government that is in position in any particular country.
Right.
Here also, whichever government comes. But we do not, we should also remember the fact that in 1990, when the whole world was against the regime here, we had gone out and we had given the Nehru Award for International Peace and Understanding to Aung San Suu Kyi. And we started working with the military government to take care of our security interests in Northeast. And that has yielded extremely good dividends in terms of promoting security, in terms of providing security. And now
even the NSCN peace accord is because of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Khaplang is on the other side. He's taken to be one of Myanmar's sort of citizens, but that's a much smaller ethnic minority there. For us, it's a big problem, but for them, it's a small. But we have been working together with them.
Okay.
Now, in addition to security, for providing prosperity and stability to Northeast, we need to work equally closely with Myanmar and to strengthen our relations.
All right, we absolutely ran out of time, but I'd like to thank all of you gentlemen for coming in. Raghubansh, you too, thank you very much for coming in and helping us understand, as far as Myanmar is concerned, indeed a historic step in the right direction, but where do the next steps lie? That will be the critical question. How much of that power is the military junta willing to let go, and what kind of a leadership does emerge in Myanmar and how that engages with India? We'll keep a close eye on this. Thanks so much for watching Rajya Sabha TV.